there are moments in life when the past suddenly knocks on the door again. A name appears on your phone. A message arrives. Hey, how have you been? I was thinking about you. I miss you. Can we talk? And suddenly, everything you thought you had already overcome begins moving inside you again. Your mind remembers the good moments. Your heart remembers the connection. And for a brief moment, you may forget the reasons you had to walk away. But this is where you must become careful. Because when someone from your past returns, the greatest mistake is not necessarily answering them. The greatest mistake is forgetting who you became after they left. You have spent time rebuilding yourself. You have learned things. You have experienced silence. You have faced your emotions. You have discovered parts of yourself that were hidden while you were trying to make someone else stay. So, when he returns, do not immediately return to the person you used to be. Pause, observe, think, and most importantly, do not allow one message to erase months of personal growth. When someone from your past suddenly returns, one of the first things you must learn is not to confuse his return with his transformation. These are two completely different things. A person can come back without becoming a different person. He can miss you without understanding what he did wrong. He can regret losing you without being ready to treat you differently. And he can say all the right words while still carrying the same habits, attitudes, and patterns that caused the relationship to fall apart in the first place. This is why you must slow down when someone returns. Do not allow the excitement of his message to become evidence that he has changed. Your emotions may immediately want to believe the best. You may remember the beautiful moments before remembering the painful ones. You may think, maybe this time will be different. But hope is not proof. Words are not proof. A sudden return is not proof. Real transformation reveals itself through consistent behavior. If he truly understands what went wrong, you will not have to force him to acknowledge it. You will see greater responsibility in the way he communicates. You will notice whether he can have difficult conversations without becoming defensive. You will notice whether he respects your boundaries instead of trying to negotiate them away. You will notice whether his actions remain consistent after the excitement of reconnecting disappears. Anyone can return with a message. Not everyone returns with maturity. There is a difference between saying, I miss you, and being able to explain why the relationship became unhealthy. There is a difference between saying, I made mistakes, and taking genuine responsibility for those mistakes. There is a difference between promising to change and actually developing the discipline required to behave differently. This is where patience becomes your protection. You do not need to decide immediately whether he has changed. You can simply observe. You can listen without making promises. You can communicate without reopening every emotional door at once. You can allow time to reveal whether his behavior matches his words, because consistency is difficult to fake for a long period of time. Someone may be extremely charming during the first conversation. They may apologize beautifully. They may tell you exactly what you want to hear. They may speak about how much they have learned and how different everything will be now. But what happens when you disagree with them? What happens when you establish a boundary? What happens when they do not get immediate access to your attention? What happens when the relationship becomes uncomfortable again? Those moments reveal far more than an emotional apology. You should also remember that people sometimes return because they miss how you made them feel, not because they are prepared to build something healthier with you. They may miss your attention, your kindness, your companionship, your emotional support, or simply the familiarity of having you in their life. Missing those things does not automatically mean they have developed the capacity to value them properly. So instead of asking, why did he come back? Ask yourself, what has actually changed? Look for evidence. Has he become more consistent? Has he learned to communicate better? Has he taken responsibility without blaming circumstances? Has he demonstrated greater respect? Has he shown patience? Has he changed the behavior that previously damaged your trust? These questions bring you back from emotion into observation. You do not need to punish him for the past, but you also do not need to erase the past simply because he has returned. Your previous experiences contain information. They teach you what patterns to recognize, what boundaries you need, and what behavior you should no longer tolerate. The goal is not to become suspicious of everyone who returns. The goal is to become wise enough to distinguish between someone who simply came back and someone who genuinely grew. Because returning is easy, changing requires discipline. And when you understand that difference, you stop being impressed by someone's words and start paying attention to their character, consistency, and actions. When he contacts you again, one of the biggest mistakes you can make is responding from the wound instead of responding from clarity. The moment his name appears on your screen, emotions can rise before your mind has even had time to understand what is happening. You may feel excitement, anxiety, anger, curiosity, hope, or even relief. All of these emotions are natural. But natural does not always mean reliable. When someone from your past returns, the first reaction you feel is not necessarily the truth you need to act on. You may suddenly remember the moments when you felt loved. You may remember his voice, his presence, the conversations you shared, the plans you once imagined. Your mind can easily highlight the beautiful memories while pushing the painful ones into the background. This is why you should never make an important decision during the first emotional wave. Pause. Pause. You don't have to answer immediately. You don't have to explain yourself immediately. You don't have to decide whether you want him back immediately. Give yourself enough space to separate what you feel from what you actually want. Sometimes what feels like love is loneliness asking for comfort. Sometimes what feels like missing him is simply missing the familiarity of having someone there. Sometimes what feels like hope is the desire to finally receive the apology, recognition, or validation you never received before. Ask yourself what you are truly responding to. Are you responding because you genuinely believe there is something healthy to rebuild? Or are you responding because his message temporarily made you feel wanted again? That distinction matters. If you have spent months rebuilding your confidence, learning to enjoy your own company, and becoming comfortable with your own life, one message should not have the power to completely disturb that stability. You are allowed to take your time. Silence for a moment is not weakness, it is awareness. You can read the message and breathe before responding. You can allow yourself to sleep on it. You can write your thoughts down. You can ask yourself what happened the last time you trusted this person. You can remember not only the good moments, but also the patterns that caused you pain. This does not mean you should automatically assume the worst about him. It means you should give yourself enough distance to see the situation clearly. When emotions are intense, we often search for evidence that supports what we want to believe. If you want him back, every kind word can suddenly look like proof of change. Every apology can feel like evidence of transformation. Every memory can become a reason to forget what happened. But clarity requires you to look at the entire picture. Don't ask only, does he still care about me? Ask, can I trust him? Don't ask only, does he miss me? Ask, does he understand what damaged the relationship? Don't ask only, does he want another chance? Ask, would another chance create something healthier than what existed before? These questions move you away from emotional reaction and toward conscious decision making. You should also understand that you are not responsible for managing his emotions simply because he has returned. If he is disappointed that you need time, that does not mean you are doing something wrong. If he becomes impatient because you want clarity, you do not have to rush. If he expects immediate forgiveness, you are allowed to take your time. Your emotional stability is more important than satisfying someone's urgency. There is no prize for answering the fastest. There is no reward for forgetting the past immediately, and there is no requirement to become emotionally available just because someone has decided they are ready to speak to you again. You have the right to pause and observe. Sometimes the most powerful response is not a long explanation. Sometimes it is simply giving yourself enough quiet to hear your own thoughts again. Because when the emotional storm becomes quiet, you may discover something important. You don't actually need to react to every feeling. You can feel something without acting on it. You can miss someone without returning to them. You can care about someone without giving them access to your life. You can be curious without becoming emotionally invested again. And you can listen to what someone has to say without immediately believing that their words have changed the entire story. The more you practice this, the less control your past has over your present. You stop allowing one message to determine your mood. You stop allowing one apology to erase your memory. You stop allowing temporary emotion to make decisions that your future self will have to live with. Instead, you create space between the feeling and the action. And within that space, you begin to see the situation with greater honesty. When someone from your past returns, one of the easiest mistakes is to give them immediate access to the person you used to be. You may remember how close you once were, how easily you talked, how much you shared, and how naturally you once allowed that person into your emotional world. Because the connection is familiar, it can feel natural to return to the same level of closeness. But familiarity is not the same as trust, and history is not the same as permission. You have changed since the relationship ended. You have experienced things that shaped your thinking. You may have learned how to communicate your needs more clearly. You may have developed stronger boundaries. You may have discovered what you will and will not tolerate. You may have become more comfortable standing alone. These changes matter. So, if someone returns, they should not automatically receive the same access they once had. This does not mean becoming cold or treating them badly. It means allowing trust to be rebuilt according to the reality of the present rather than the memories of the past. If the relationship ended because trust was damaged, then trust cannot simply be restored because someone sends a message saying they miss you. Trust is built through repeated experiences of honesty, consistency, respect, and accountability. Think about your emotional availability as something valuable. You do not have to give all of it away simply because someone asks for it again. You can communicate slowly. You can keep conversations simple at first. You can observe whether their behavior remains respectful when they do not get everything they want. This is especially important because returning to an old relationship can sometimes make people behave as though no time has passed. They may immediately bring back old nicknames, old memories, old jokes, and emotional conversations. These things can create the illusion that nothing has changed. But something has changed. You have. And you should not hide that growth simply to make the reconnection comfortable. If you have learned that you need honest communication, then communicate honestly. If you need consistency, pay attention to consistency. If you need time before trusting again, take that time. If you are no longer willing to accept certain behaviors, do not abandon your standards just because you still have feelings. A healthy reconnection should have room for the person you are now. You don't need to prove that you have moved on by being distant. You don't need to prove that you still care by becoming immediately available. You can be kind while maintaining boundaries. You can listen without promising anything. You can appreciate an apology without automatically restoring the relationship. There is also an important difference between forgiveness and access. You may forgive someone because you no longer want to carry anger, but forgiveness does not require you to give that person the same position in your life. You can release resentment while still protecting your peace. You can understand someone's mistakes without volunteering to experience the same pattern again. When he contacts you, don't immediately give him every detail of your life. Don't immediately become his emotional support system. Don't immediately start planning a future together. Don't immediately behave as though the old relationship has been restored. Let the present relationship develop on its own terms. Allow him time to show you whether the connection deserves deeper trust. If he genuinely respects you, he will not need to force the process. He will understand that your caution is reasonable. He will recognize that rebuilding something meaningful requires patience. He will not demand that you prove your feelings by ignoring your boundaries. And if he becomes frustrated simply because you are moving carefully, pay attention to that reaction. The person who wants healthy access to your life should be willing to build healthy trust. You do not need to give someone unlimited access just because they once had it. The past does not create permanent ownership. Your life belongs to you now. Your attention belongs to you. Your emotional energy belongs to you. Your trust belongs to you. And you have the right to decide who receives those things and at what pace. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do when someone returns is to stop asking, "How can I make this feel like it used to?" Instead, ask, "What would make this healthy now?" That question forces you to stop rebuilding the old relationship and start evaluating whether something new can actually be created. Because if you simply return to the old patterns, you are not creating a second chance. You are repeating the first chance. And you should never sacrifice the growth you gained through pain just to recreate the comfort that existed before the pain. When he contacts you again, one of the clearest ways to understand his intentions is to watch what happens when you establish a boundary. Many people can behave perfectly when everything is going their way. They can be charming, patient, affectionate, and understanding when they are receiving exactly what they want. But the real character of a person often becomes visible when they hear something they don't want to hear. This is why you should not be afraid to set boundaries when someone from your past returns. A boundary is not a punishment. It is not an attempt to control another person. It is simply a clear statement about what you are comfortable accepting and what you are not. You might say, "I need time before I trust you again." You might say, "I don't want to rush into anything." You might say, "If we are going to communicate, I need honesty." You might say, "I am not comfortable repeating the same patterns we had before." Then observe. Does he respect your words? Does he become patient? Does he try to understand? Or does he become angry because you are no longer immediately available to him? This reaction can tell you more than a beautiful apology ever could. A person who genuinely respects you may feel disappointed by your boundary, but they will still understand that you have the right to have one. They will not demand immediate trust simply because they have returned. They will not tell you that you are overreacting because you remember what happened. They will not pressure you into moving faster than you are ready to move. Instead, they will allow their behavior to demonstrate their intentions. This is important because boundaries create a space where genuine character can be observed. When everything is easy, almost anyone can appear caring. But when you say no, when you ask for time, or when you refuse to accept something that once hurt you, the situation becomes different. Someone who only wants access may become frustrated. Someone who wants control may try to manipulate you. Someone who wants validation may make you feel guilty. Someone who genuinely wants to rebuild trust will understand that trust cannot be demanded. Pay attention to guilt. If he says things like, "If you really cared about me, you would give me another chance," recognize what is happening. Your feelings are being used to pressure you into abandoning your own boundaries. Love should not require you to betray yourself. Neither should reconciliation. You should also watch how he responds when you disagree. Does he listen? Can he accept that you have a different perspective? Can he discuss difficult subjects without turning the conversation into an attack? Can he take responsibility without immediately defending himself? These moments matter because a relationship is not tested only during beautiful conversations. It is tested during disagreement, disappointment, uncertainty, and conflict. If someone can respect your boundaries when they are inconvenient, that tells you something meaningful about their emotional maturity. But if every boundary becomes an argument, you should pay attention to the pattern. You do not need to make dramatic declarations. You don't need to test someone deliberately or create situations to see how they react. Simply communicate honestly and observe naturally. If you say you need space, take the space. If you say you want to move slowly, move slowly. If you say certain behavior is unacceptable, remain consistent with what you said. Your boundary only becomes meaningful when you are willing to respect it yourself. Do not establish a boundary and then abandon it because you are afraid the other person will leave. That fear can make you compromise before the relationship has even been rebuilt. Remember that someone's reaction to your boundary is information. If they walk away simply because you asked for respect, you have learned something. If they become impatient because you need time, you have learned something. If they consistently respect your boundaries without trying to weaken them, you have learned something too. You are not responsible for making another person comfortable with every decision you make. You are responsible for being honest about what you need. When you stop being afraid of someone's reaction to your boundaries, you become much harder to manipulate. You stop negotiating against yourself. You stop shrinking your standards simply to keep someone close. And when he returns, that is exactly the mindset you need. Not fear, not revenge, not desperation, but calm observation. Let his response to your boundaries show you whether he respects the person you have become. When someone from your past contacts you again, one of the deepest questions you can ask yourself is not whether you still have feelings for him, but whether returning to that connection would bring you closer to the life you are trying to build. Feelings can be powerful, but feelings alone do not tell you whether something is healthy. Sometimes we are drawn toward what is familiar, simply because we already know it. We know the person, the conversations, the memories, the emotional patterns, and even the disappointments. Familiarity can feel safe simply because it is known. But something being familiar does not make it good for you. You can become familiar with chaos. You can become familiar with uncertainty. You can become familiar with waiting for someone to change. You can become familiar with giving more than you receive. And because you have experienced these patterns before, returning to them can feel strangely comfortable. Your mind may recognize the situations, even when your heart knows it was painful. This is why peace must become more important than familiarity. Ask yourself what your life feels like when this person is present. Are you calm, secure, and able to focus on your own growth? Or are you constantly checking your phone, questioning his intentions, analyzing every message, and wondering where you stand? A healthy connection should not require you to abandon your inner stability. This does not mean that every relationship will be perfect. Every meaningful connection will have moments of disagreement and uncertainty. But there is a difference between normal difficulty and a repeated pattern that continuously drains you. You have to learn to recognize that difference. Sometimes the strongest temptation is to return because you remember the good moments. You remember the laughter, the affection, the conversations that lasted for hours, the dreams you shared, and the moments when you genuinely felt connected. Those memories may be real. You don't have to deny them. But a relationship is not defined by its best moments alone. You must also remember the patterns that made you lose your peace. If you constantly felt confused, ignored, disrespected, or emotionally exhausted, those experiences are also part of the story. You cannot build a wise decision by remembering only the moments that make you want to return. Ask yourself whether the person you are considering returning to is compatible with the person you have become. Maybe you have learned that you need consistency. Maybe you now value direct communication. Maybe you no longer want to chase someone for basic attention. Maybe you have learned that love without respect is not enough. Maybe you have discovered that your peace is more valuable than proving your worth to someone. If those lessons are now part of you, don't abandon them simply because someone familiar has returned. Your growth should have a voice in your decisions. You can care about someone and still choose distance. You can appreciate the memories and still choose a different future. You can forgive someone without rebuilding the relationship. You can acknowledge that someone mattered to you without deciding that they belong in your life forever. There is also nothing wrong with choosing peace, even when part of you still has feelings. You don't have to wait until you feel absolutely nothing before making a healthy decision. Sometimes maturity means recognizing that a connection is emotionally powerful, but not necessarily good for your future. So, when he contacts you again, don't only ask whether you feel something. Ask what that connection does to your life. Does it make you stronger or more anxious? Does it encourage your growth or distract you from it? Does it bring clarity or confusion? Does it create mutual respect or another cycle of uncertainty? Does it allow you to remain yourself? Or do you find yourself becoming the person you were when you were desperately trying to keep the relationship alive? These questions matter because your future is being shaped by what you repeatedly allow into your life. You don't have to return simply because someone returned. You don't have to reopen a door because someone is standing outside it. And you don't have to choose the familiar path just because you already know how to walk it. Sometimes the unfamiliar path is where your peace begins. The person you are becoming deserves relationships that do not require you to constantly abandon yourself. Your time, attention, emotional energy, and trust are valuable. They should be given consciously, not automatically. When you choose peace, you are not saying that the other person has no value. You are saying that your well-being has value too. And when you understand that, you stop measuring love only by how strongly you feel about someone and begin measuring it by whether the connection allows both people to live with dignity, honesty, respect, and emotional freedom. So when he contacts you again, remember this moment. Do not let one message make you forget everything you have learned. Do not let a familiar voice pull you back into an unfamiliar version of yourself. And most importantly, do not mistake his return for proof that everything has changed. Maybe he has changed. Maybe he has not. You do not have to decide immediately. Let time speak. Let consistency speak. Let actions speak. You have nothing to prove. You do not need to show him that you still care. You do not need to show him that you have moved on. You do not need to punish him for what happened. You simply need to remain honest with yourself. If he truly wants to rebuild something with you, he will understand that trust cannot be demanded. He will understand that your boundaries are not rejection. He will understand that your heart cannot simply return to where it was before. And if he genuinely has changed, you will not have to convince yourself. You will see it. You will see it in the way he communicates. You will see it in the way he handles disagreement. You will see it in the way he respects your boundaries. You will see it in the consistency of his actions when there is nothing immediate to gain. But if his return brings the same confusion, the same pressure, the same disrespect, and the same emotional exhaustion, then you already have your answer. You don't need another painful lesson to confirm what you have already learned. Remember, your healing was not meant to prepare you to tolerate the same pain again. Your growth was not meant to make you better at surviving unhealthy relationships. Your growth was meant to teach you how to choose differently. So if he comes back, don't ask only, does he want me again? Is this relationship worthy of the woman I have become? That question will bring you back to yourself, because sometimes someone returns to see whether the old version of you is still available. And sometimes life gives you that moment, not so you can go backward, but so you can finally recognize how far you have come. You can listen without surrendering. You can forgive without forgetting. You can care without chasing. You can love someone and still choose yourself. And you can close a door without hatred. There is strength in that. Real strength is not becoming so cold that nobody can reach you. Real strength is becoming so grounded that you no longer abandon yourself just because someone wants access to you. So the next time his name appears on your screen, breathe. Don't react from loneliness. Don't respond from anger. Don't answer from desperation. Pause, observe, and remember who you are now. You have already survived the version of this story that broke you. You don't have to repeat it just because someone wants another chapter. Choose what brings clarity. Choose what respects your boundaries. Choose what supports your growth. Choose what protects your peace. And if someone truly belongs in your future, they will not require you to destroy the progress you made to make room for them. They will meet you where you are. They will respect who you have become. They will walk beside your growth rather than asking you to return to your past. So when he contacts you again, never make the mistake of forgetting yourself, because the most important relationship you have is the one you have with the person you see when you are alone. Protect her, respect her, trust her, and never trade the peace you fought so hard to find for the temporary comfort of something you already know.